Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are keeping well, and good morning and good evening to those who are not in the same time zone as I. My name is Juliet Oma. I am the Programs Assistant at African Pharmaceutical Network, and it's a pleasure to have each and every one of you join us for this industry discussion forum this afternoon. So I will give the rest the next 3 minutes to join us. Please go ahead and introduce yourself on the chat. Let us know who you are and where you are joining us from. I am very happy to see each and every one of you, and I'm trying to see if I can recognize anyone. Dr. Angelina Foka, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. I can see Beatrice Chinaza. Thank you. Thank you so much. Emmanuel. Thank you. Yobed, thank you so much. Let's see if I can see more individuals who I do recognize. I appreciate each and every one of you. James, thank you for joining us. All right, we'll be able to start in the next few minutes. Kajal, thank you, and see you. Go ahead and introduce yourself on the chat. Let us know who you are and where you are joining us from. And see Melissa. Good afternoon to you. Thank you. We'll be able to begin in the next 2 minutes, but in the meantime, do introduce yourself in the chat. Thank you. All right, we're at exactly 3:05, and I would like for us to begin the session this afternoon. Our industry discussion forum today will be discussing strengthening quality systems in African vaccine manufacturing to build public trust. And our guest speaker for this afternoon is Dr. Sarah Montero. She's the General Manager, Regulatory Affairs, Quality and Safety at Kenya Biovax Institute. And before we get into the session, I have a few housekeeping notes that I would like to take you through. As I had initially said, please go ahead and introduce yourself on the chat. This is for the purpose of networking. You can also share your LinkedIn account so that we can be able to connect with you as well. And even when we are sharing the after the post-event posts on LinkedIn, we'll also be able to tag you. And please note that your microphone and your cameras are off, and this is to minimize distraction. And then we'll also have a Q&A session after the presentation of Dr. Montero. And if you have any pressing questions, please go ahead and share them with us on the chat as well. For Q&A, you can post your questions on the Q&A chat box. We'll be able to have Dr. Montero cover your questions as well. And also for those who are joining us in Kenya and you are a registered pharmacist or a registered pharm tech in Kenya, please note that this session is CPD accredited by Pharmacy and Poisons Board. We encourage you to subscribe for your CPD points on the portal. The points will be awarded to you automatically on Monday. Please do take note of that. And if you have any concerns, I'll be posting our contacts as well on the chat. That is the Secretariat email and our phone number as well, where you can be able to contact us via mobile or via WhatsApp. All right. So quickly, I would like to take us through the overview of African Pharmaceutical Network, who we are, and the kind of work that we do. So African Pharmaceutical Network is a Pan-African convener and advisory firm that convenes stakeholders for the purpose of knowledge sharing, policy shaping, and innovation nurturing partnerships to ensure reliable access to safe and effective quality medicines in Africa. The organization was founded in 2020 at the backdrop of COVID-19 pandemic. And this was out of the desire to address specific challenges in the industry, including limited local manufacturing in Africa, which was attributed to capacity shortfalls in the continent, segregated and disjointed pharmaceutical systems as well. And we'd like also to help the industry to tackle these particular kinds of challenges. And this also leads us to these particular kinds of sessions that we are having this afternoon. And the third was the lack of a single common platform to convince stakeholders to chart a path for the future of the pharmaceutical industry in Africa. Therefore, APN was established as a pan-African platform. So what is our mission? Our mission is to ensure reliable access to safe, quality, and effective health products and technologies in Africa, and this includes vaccines. And I'm saying this so that we can focus and continue to center our conversations around the topic that we'll be covering this afternoon, because these are part of the health products that we ought to ensure that are effective, that they are safe, that they continue to meet the purpose in which they are invented for upon the continent. And then our vision, it is to ensure reliable access to safe, quality, and effective medicines and health products in Africa. What are our values as an organization? We have 6 values that continue to guide our day-to-day activities in the organization. But at the core of everything that we do, the first value is humanity, that before everything else, we must remember that we are human beings, that we must care for each other, have kindness in our hearts, and be empathetic towards each other. This continues to guide the kinds of works that we do, even in the pharmaceutical industry. It is through humanity that we ensure that the products that we are bringing to market, that they are quality, safe, and effective. It is upon this point where I recognize that the other person is a human being consuming my products. Therefore, I have the desire to ensure that they are always protected and they're not in harm's way. Then we have integrity, where we believe in doing the right thing at the right time and at all times. Then we have professionalism, that we must conduct ourselves in a professional manner, whether it is within the organization or outside the organization, in different platforms where we get to and meet each other. And then we also have client value, where we continue to ensure that those who are consuming our products, that they find value in that which they are doing, the different businesses, the different products that they have as well in the market. And then we have teamwork, where we believe that we work together. Everything that we do it together, ensuring that the only way we will move forward, it is by working together. So this has been our journey. The organization was founded in 2020. Then in 2021, we were able to convene different industry discussion forums with industry partners, including FKPM, Pharma Connect Africa, IFPMA, Bloom Public Health. And then in 2022, we were able to sign up partnerships of agreement with Empower School of Health. And this also officiated the first step for us to have the academy, which came in 2023. And it was launched where we had our first course, which was the Regulatory Affairs course. And in 2024, we were able to scale up the courses that we are offering in the academy to assist with pharmaceutical workforce development. And thereby, we added on the pharmacovigilance course and the pharmaceutical supply chain management course. Then in 2025, we placed our focus on operational excellence in the academy, but also on the different services that we are providing, which I will be sharing shortly in the next slide. So our services, we have pharmaceutical workforce development, where we offer professional development courses, corporate trainings, and industry discussion forums for professionals to upskill. And this is not only limited to professionals working within the African pharmaceutical industry, but also those who will be joining us from beyond the borders of Africa. And we also offer regulatory services to industry players as well. This includes regulatory services and pharmacovigilance oversight support as well. And then we have business ecosystem support. Under business ecosystem support, we also help industries, we also help businesses to unlock their value. And this is through market research, intelligence, talent management, among others. And lastly, we have policy shaping and partnership interventions as well, which we also continue to engage in and involve ourselves in to ensure that the industry is moving forward. So our partners, these have been our partners over time. And as we are sharing this, we also encourage you to partner with us. If you are representing any organization as well within the industry, please go ahead and partner with us. And it is not only limited to associations and organizations working and focusing in the pharmaceutical industry. We are opening up doors to those who are also not, let me say, basically working within the pharma industry, but those who are able to support and get to work together with us towards a common vision. We welcome you to join us. So what are the next steps for you? We encourage you to contract us for different kinds of services. You can get to partner with us on different projects that we have internally and even those that you have on your end. And we also encourage you to get to learn with us at our Pharmacy Academy, where we continue to offer excellence when it comes to pharmaceutical workforce development. And with that, I have come to the end of my overview for our beautiful organization, African Pharmaceutical Network. And I want us to dive into the discussion of the day, strengthening quality systems in African vaccine manufacturing to build public trust. And as I get into this, I have a poll that I would like to share with us before I get to introduce Dr. Muteru to us officially to get us into this discussion. So please join me on this poll. I just want to understand, to gauge your understanding when it comes to vaccine manufacturing in the continent. These are very few and simple icebreaker questions. So that is, I'll be sharing the screen. Right. Please confirm that you are able to see my screen. Can get to scan the QR code here and let us know. In one word, what comes to your mind when you hear vaccine manufacturing, all right? Can get to scan this code on a different tab. Get to scan this code, and then in one word, you can let us know what comes to your mind when you hear vaccine manufacturing. And maybe for ease, I'll just post this on the chat as well, so that those who are using the chat can also be able to we can also be able to access it on the chat. So let me post it on the chat. The link has been posted on the chat. No responses yet. In one word, what comes to mind when you hear vaccine manufacturing? I hope the question is visible and it is not too difficult. In one word, what comes to mind when you hear vaccine manufacturing? Okay, thank you. I have realized. Thank you. Someone is saying it is not enabled. All right. Have that be enabled for you. And try it again, please. One word what comes to mind when you hear African vaccine manufacturing? Thank you. Two responses, quality systems, potential. Thank you. More responses. Thank you. Prevention. No resources. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Funding. Prevention. Stability. Thank you. Mm. 7 responses, 8 responses and counting. I'll linger here for the next 30 seconds, then we'll get to move on to the second question. All right, thank you. Regulations, okay. Sterile environment, okay. Capacity building, thank you. Regulated processes, thank you. One word what comes to mind when you hear African vaccine manufacturing? Let's keep them coming. All right. Pfizer, interesting, thank you. Any other? Okay, 18 responses. We're just moving on to the next question. Pharmacovigilance, local manufacturers, immunity, thank you. Sovereignty, thank you. Manufacturers of vaccines, thank you. Complex, all right, thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the second question. What is the one quality element that African vaccine manufacturers must get right? What is the one quality element that African vaccine manufacturers must get right? Effectiveness, okay, quality by design, management systems, compliance, thank you. GMP, thank you. Optimal conditions, fantastic, thank you. Effectiveness, thank you. Quality management, thank you. Optimal conditions, thank you. All right, I'll give you about 20 seconds. You can go ahead and share a response, then I'll be able to introduce Dr. Mucheru to us so that we can get into the discussion of the day. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you so much. Right, thank you so much for engaging us on that particular poll. And at this point, I would like to introduce our guest speaker for the day so that we can get to hear from her. She's an expert as well. And we can be able to learn more and find out what are the current trends, what's happening in the continent, and how can we position ourselves either as individuals or as organizations to ensure that we are supporting local vaccine manufacturing in the continent. So who is Dr. Mucheru? So Dr. Mucheru, sorry. Dr. Mucheru is a pharmaceutical quality systems expert with over 15 years of experience in ensuring the safety, quality, and efficacy of health products. She currently serves as the General Manager for Regulatory Affairs, Quality and Safety at Kenya Biovacs Institute, where she's supporting the establishment of local vaccine manufacturing through strong regulatory and quality frameworks. Previously, she served as the director at the National Quality Control Laboratory as a WHO pre-qualified laboratory, where she led national efforts in quality control testing for health products and technologies. During her time at NQCL, she worked alongside a dedicated team to uphold rigorous quality standards and contribute to strengthening public confidence in the safety of medicines in Kenya. She is passionate about regulatory innovation, local manufacturing, and the role of pharmacists in advancing public health outcomes through quality assurance and policy developments. And with that, karibu sana, Dr. Sarah Mutero. Thank you.
Very much, Juliet. I will not have my camera on the entire time, but indeed it's a pleasure and a privilege to be part of this discussion. Thank you so much. I can see people have turned out, and it's a Friday afternoon, so I don't take it for granted that we have quite a bit of interest in this subject. You've already done the introduction, and I've been part of the APN trainings, and so I'd encourage us to join. It's a really good institution, and I like how they have curated their trainings. Your introduction was very detailed. And even from the poll, I can see that people are aware of what vaccine manufacturing is. Actually, it's like you've already read through my presentation. So with that, I do not want to take so much of your time because it's already 3:25. So allow me to have the video off as I take you through my presentation. So my presentation will have in terms of outline, I'll give you the continental context of local manufacturing and also why public trust is a prerequisite for this local manufacturing. Then we'll look at the quality system pillars, which will guide actually that discussion to give it structure. We will look at regulatory and quality ecosystem because this actually lays the foundation for the quality of health products, including vaccines. And then we have lessons from global vaccine incidents because we actually learn from the mistakes that have been done in the past. And if you, as we'll get to see, most of the regulations that we have and the frameworks that we have in place are as a result of tragedies and other mistakes that have been done by other manufacturers. Next slide, Juliet. So why are we having this kind of conversation as Africans? Because I think most of us have had vaccine manufacturing. It's now the buzzword, and it has been since COVID time. And I think we have talked about COVID-19, and I don't want to belabor on that. But really, from that lesson, what we were able to learn is that if a nation or a continent can ask itself who is going to live, who is going to get this vaccine, and someone else out there is the one who makes the decision on which lives should be saved, then that really brought the African leaders to rethink health security. And because of that, there was a gathering in 2021 where African leaders and also heads of health authorities, they sat, and of course they said, never again will Africa be the last on the line when it comes to accessing some of these very critical commodities. And so they sat down and we started looking at the supply of vaccines and also other health products and technologies. And during that AU meeting, they actually resolved that by 2040, we will have 60% of Africa vaccines African or whatever is consumed on the continent should actually be manufactured by Africa. And this is because from the study that they took, we realized that less than 1% of the vaccines that are used in the continent or on the continent were actually manufactured on the continent, meaning that we are relying mostly on imports. And looking at the exposure that we saw, we were exposed to the supply disruptions, and knowing that vaccines are the single most effective way of preventing communicable diseases, we realized that we cannot afford to be this exposed. And so the discussions about local manufacturing began. And from the image that I'm showing there, it's actually, this is the strategic vision of Africa CDC, where they have come up with 5 pillars, and one of them being local manufacturing. Because of time, I will not go through all of them. But the first one was the reformed and inclusive global health architecture. The second one is on the pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. Then we have the predictable, domestic, innovative, and blended financing, because we also cannot continue relying on donor funding. We have to find a way of resource mobilizing as a continent so that we can be self-sufficient. And then digital transformation, of course, we know disease surveillance and gathering data will inform how we can be better prepared for future pandemics. And now number 5, which is really our focus today, is local manufacturing. And as much as today's focus is on local manufacturing of vaccines, there is, of course, concerted efforts on the continent to also manufacture other health products and technologies. So really, this is about health security and sovereignty as a broader agenda on the continent. Next slide. So this is just a continuation of my previous slide. And like I mentioned, the 2021 heads of state having endorsed what they called at that time partnerships for African vaccine manufacturing, the PHAHM, which now has included other health products, and now it's called the Platform for Harmonized African Health Products Manufacturing, the PHAHM, we call it PHAHM. And from there, you can see there's been a continuous, there are many discussions that have been happening on the continent by the same African leaders. And now this is what you're calling the new public health order for Africa. All this is about ensuring that we have health security by making sure that we have invested in local manufacturing. And all this is what we call the market shaping initiatives. And they're supposed to help with stimulate investment, build manufacturing capacity, improve access to quality of health products on the continent. Next slide, Juliet. So as we talk about local manufacturing, we are also not blind to the fact that there's a perception on the continent. Even here in Kenya, when people talk about local manufacturing, most of us or most Kenyans have this perception that the quality is inferior to what is imported. So as we advance this agenda of local manufacturing of health products and technologies, we have to address the issue of trust, because we can have access, but are people willing to uptake these health commodities? As a pharmacist, you remember when we are trained, I don't know whether the audience, most of them are pharmacists, but you know that there is a placebo effect. There is a faith component that comes with interventions. So if the patient does not trust the health commodity, then it's going to be a problem. And it's even worse when it comes to vaccines, because with vaccines, we'll have hesitancy. Remember, we are dealing with healthy populations. There's a mother who has been asked to have their child vaccinated. And because if there's anything to do with the perception of the vaccine, maybe having inferior quality, or they think it's been adulterated with something, then they will not take that child for immunization. And so we have to address this perception, because the quality of that product has an impact on whether people will uptake the vaccine or not. Then there are also procurement decisions for global procurement agencies like UNICEF, like Gavi. They will not procure a product that is not WHO pre-qualified. And the WHO pre-qualification here is what gives the product its mark of quality. And so as we talk about vaccines and their quality, it is also going to affect the sustainability of the manufacturing institutions or companies that are coming up. At the moment, we have about 25 African manufacturers that have invested in vaccine manufacturing, BioVax included. And so if you look at sustainability for those manufacturers to be sustainable, we have to also look at the quality and ensure that other countries can trust the commodity that they will be manufacturing. We are aware, and I think from the audience, from the poll that was done, there are some who said that vaccine manufacturing is complex, and that is true. It is complex. It takes a long time in terms of even realizing your return on investment. So it's a high risk business. So we are looking at time horizons of 10 to 20 years. And then when you look at that, and then when there are issues of quality, imagine all that time investment, it's capital intensive. So the procurement decisions that will be made in terms of market access, then we have to be careful about that perception. And then the regulatory confidence. I believe most of us have heard about maturity level, WHO maturity level, and there's been many countries on the continent that are pursuing maturity level 3, which is really the what WHO would call a mature regulatory authority that can provide oversight to the manufacturers, both for vaccines and also for other health products. Then I think it's important for us to note that trust is built through systems, transparency and evidence. It's evidence-based. This is a science. You can't just tell somebody that this product is of good quality. You have to demonstrate through your systems from the beginning. And we have this term that we call the quality by design. So from the time you conceptualize your idea of manufacturing, then to the design of that facility, then to building the systems, the personnel that you bring in, until the time when you manufacture the vaccine and roll it out, you have to demonstrate that, and that is what the trust will be based on. Next slide. So just to re-emphasize this, that quality cannot be inspected into the product. It must be built in. And this is just a summary of what I've been talking about. In addition to having the systems and the robust quality management systems, the compliance with international standards like WHO, as we'll see in the subsequent slides, the transparent manufacturing practices, we also have to have independent quality control and surveillance. And that is where now national quality control labs, including the regulator, have to ensure that they have tested this product. You can't just rely on the manufacturer's test report. You also have to have independent quality control that will now inform the regulator, so that by the time they're issuing the lot release certificate, it's based on another independent result from another lab, mostly at the lab that the regulator uses. Next slide. So these are the frameworks, because vaccine manufacturing is highly regulated, or generally the pharma industry itself is highly regulated. And so most of the frameworks have been harmonized internationally. So most national regulatory authorities will adopt what is there. So this list is not it's not complete, it's not exclusive. We have others, and so I just picked a few to guide our discussions. Global frameworks ensure that pharmaceutical and vaccine products are developed, manufactured, and monitored under robust quality systems, strengthening regulatory confidence and public trust. It's actually adhering to these frameworks that will help address the questions of public trust. When a regulator comes for an audit and they see that you are in compliance with certain standards and guidelines that are internationally recognized, then that gives the assurance that your product has met the quality requirements. Most of them are WHO. Then, of course, we have the ICH guidelines, the EU. If you look at these guidelines, they've been adopted and harmonized. Most of them initially were used by the European Medicines Agency and also the US FDA, but the rest of the world has adopted this so that whichever auditor comes from whichever part of the country, they will speak the same language. Because like I said, this is an investment, it's capital intensive. So you do not want a situation where you have different auditors coming with different requirements. So as an investor in this field, when they are setting up a manufacturing facility, they already know which guideline they need to follow so that things do not change later on and it becomes a very expensive exercise. So just as an example, we have the WHO Technical Report Series 1044. This is really our Bible when you're looking at biological products. And when I refer to biological products here, I'm talking about vaccines, talking about monoclonal antibodies, you're talking about anti-snake venom, you're talking about insulin and gene therapies and the rest. Then we also have the WHO TRS 961. This is for sterile pharmaceutical products. This is good because when you're looking at sterile products, we also have the biologicals are also sterile. They are meant to be sterile because they're injected into the human body. But the main difference here is that most sterile pharmaceutical products will require terminal sterilization. So in terms of the strictness of ensuring that the processes are aseptic, it's slightly maybe less stringent, if I may put it loosely like that. So, but for biologicals, because you cannot heat the product in the end to ensure sterilization, you have to ensure that your air and every process is sterile so that the integrity of the biological product is maintained, because now most of these, of course, they are proteins. So if you hit them, then you lose the immunogenicity that you're looking for to confer immunity in the patient. Then we have the ICH guideline Q10. This is really the foundation because it gives you the pharmaceutical quality system requirements. And then we have the EU GMP. This is a good one because of the requirements for sterile medicinal products. It's quite related to the TRS 961. And we cannot talk about vaccines without talking about clinical trials. And for this, we rely on ICH E6. And then finally, the TRS 961 Annex 7, which gives you the guidelines for technology transfer for pharma. This is important because on the African continent, there is a study that was done, I think, on behalf of the Africa CDC by PHAHM. You can confirm that. But I'm not quite sure whether it was PATH, but just you can reference, you can Google and check Africa CDC. And we realized that most of the manufacturers of the vaccine manufacturing are setting up fill finish facilities. So what this means is that they will get the technology from an already established manufacturer. And then once they get the technology and they get the bulk drug product, then they can manufacture it through the filling lines and label it and package it. So this has become a guideline that is very useful when we are talking about the sending unit, which is the donor of the technology, and the receiving unit, which is the recipient here on the continent. There are, of course, efforts to try and see if we can come up with our own guidelines, because we are increasingly getting aware that the requirements or our issues on the continent are unique. So there are efforts to try and see if we can come up with our own. I know we have our regulator and others on the continent through the efforts of the African Medicines Agency. We are coming up with guidelines, one of them being the continental lot release guidelines, which most national regulatory authorities now are using so that they can customize them for lot release of vaccines, because the regulator has to issue a lot release certificate for every vaccine before it's rolled out. Next slide. So these are the pillars. For those of us who are in manufacturing, we know these as the GMP pillars. We have to look at the personnel in terms of their qualification. We have to look at the premises, whether they meet the requirements as stipulated in the guidelines that I've already mentioned. Then there are processes here. We are talking about the utilities. We are talking about the water. We are talking about other processes that will be used within the GMP facility. Then we have the raw materials, all the way from the active pharmaceutical ingredient, the bulk drug product or drug substance that will get to the packaging material. All that will form the raw material. Then we have the equipment. Then we have the contamination control strategy, because really this is where you have to ensure that you've done your risk analysis and you've mitigated the risk of contamination, because contamination will come from the air, from the personnel. And if your facility is not designed as per GMP requirements in terms of the walls, in terms of the floor, then cleaning it will be a problem. And this is where mostly you'll have the auditors having an issue. If you've not demonstrated that you were able to test the air quality and your personnel have done their proper gowning, then you will have audit issues that might actually lead to shutting down of the facility. Then the documentation, we always say that if you do not write it down, it never happened. So here we are talking about contemporaneous documentation of everything that you do from the very beginning. And then the quality control checks that are going to be done during the entire process and at the end, because we said you cannot build or test quality into the product. You have to ensure that at every step you're testing, so that by the time you're carrying out your final testing, it's really just a confirmation of what you have been seeing, so that you do not end up destroying an entire batch. It's too expensive, and also the risk of having this product in the market when it does not meet the quality requirements, because it's a sample that you'll have taken. So you cannot afford to do that. Next slide. So starting with the personnel and the quality culture, the idea here is to ensure that you recruit and employ staff that are qualified and are competent. So the qualification, the PPB has guidelines on the personnel that are employed in a pharmaceutical facility, and they have actually written down what the qualification, the basic degrees they should have. But then again, it is a requirement to ensure that you have workforce development, and you need to upskill your staff once they are employed. So training plans are important. You have to ensure that every year or every so often the frequency is up to your requirement, but at a minimum, your staff have to be trained every year in different skills that you'll have. Juliet, I can see Hilda has her hand up, so I don't know whether we finish and then you address. Maybe there's an issue with the audio or something. Juliet, do I continue? Because I saw a hand up.
Yeah.
You can hear me, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you loud and clear. Hilda, if you have a query, you can go ahead and type it on the chat. I'll be able to respond to you. Thank you.
Okay, then let's go back to the slides. The second one, of course, I've already talked about the professional training. There are the specific trainings now that we have identified, especially for vaccine manufacturing. There are trainings on biosafety, aseptic processing, and quality systems. And it's important that we have a continuous advocacy for quality culture in everything that you do. So you have from the guard at the gate and how they handle the people who are coming in. They need also to be aware when they get consignments, how do they handle them? Because the vaccine sometimes can have, it's actually a product that needs to be protected and secured. We also do not want a situation where somebody exposes themselves to some hazardous material, because you might actually have some cultures that will come in because you'll need them for testing at the lab. So you need to have that kind of strong quality culture in every department, every section. Every staff member needs to be accountable. Then this cannot happen if there is no leadership commitment to quality, patient safety, and ensuring that there are adequate resources. Quality is expensive in the sense that you have to invest in it. So the issue of the price tag is important, but we have to also ensure that we prioritize quality. So quality systems are as strong as the people who implement them. And this is something really that is interlinked with integrity, and you cannot train someone to be a person of integrity. But leaders have an influence on how people are going to behave and how they can ensure that we have the quality culture in an organization. Next slide. So for the premises, the photo that we have here is a BioNTech in Rwanda. What they have done is that they have a modular system, and the modular system is it's an easier way of coming up with the structure, because everything comes, it's an all-in-one. The equipment is already it comes built in with the air handling unit, and so you do not have to build it ground up. Of course, it has its own limitations, but it's an easier way, and we've seen a number of manufacturers who've done this. But what the point I wanted to make here is that the facility design needs to support GMP compliant production environments. Because of time, I was not able to go into the details of how that facility should be. But in a manufacturing facility, there are requirements and materials that you should use for the floor. There are requirements for the walls. There are requirements for the air handling units. You need to have the right requirements for the HVAC systems to prevent contamination. The material and personnel flow must minimize cross-contamination. And actually, when setting up a manufacturing facility, the Pharmacy and Poisons Board requires you to submit your concept designs. And in these concept designs, the one thing that you need to demonstrate is that you have the right flow of material and personnel. You need to demonstrate from the design itself that that kind of design has minimized cross-contamination. Then you also have to ensure that you've done your area classification properly, and when you're moving from one class to another, from the unclassified, then you have the class D, then you go to the B, C, and A being the most sterile area. You have to ensure that you have personnel airlocks, and there are requirements for that in terms of even the pressure differential between those every room. And so because of the time now, I felt we'll just look at this and have a high level summary on it. But maybe, Juliet, in another forum, we can look at specific requirements for every area or every room in terms of the premises. So the infrastructure must support controlled manufacturing of biological products. We usually say that you need to demonstrate, especially after you've validated the processes, that we say that the manufacturing facility is under control. So if it's not within control, or you cannot demonstrate that you have consistent results, then you have a problem there. So here the infrastructure must support that controlled environment. Next slide. So for the raw material, this is critical. You have to ensure that you get the right suppliers that are qualified, or what for government institutions or even others, we will pre-qualify the vendors. There's a criteria that is used. There's even a requirement to go and see at the source how these suppliers are storing their products, or whether they meet the quality requirements. Like for Kenya Biovacs, we will require vaccines. The bulk drug product needs to be WHO pre-qualified. So in a way, you have mitigated the risk. Then the incoming material needs to be tested. You need to check for identity to verify that it meets the requirements and it's within the specifications that have been documented. Then you have to demonstrate traceability of the excipients and biological material. Most of them, they have to be traceable to an international standard, or a way of verifying that they are actually of the right quality. Then we have to demonstrate strong supply chain oversight. And here the cold chain requirements are, you need to demonstrate that you have maintained the cold chain during the transportation of this product. Most of these products require cold storage, and so most of them will be shipped in. As you can see, this was during COVID. Vaxera is a manufacturer in Egypt, where they were receiving the first consignment of the Chinese Sinovac vaccine raw material, because now they were going to start manufacturing the vaccine in Egypt. And as you can see, they have to fly it in. So this means that it's also going to be very expensive. But now here, what you do, you have to demonstrate that the cold chain was not interrupted. And so that oversight is usually documented through data loggers, and there has to be a way of ensuring that the thermal hygrometers, you download the data, and you should be able to analyze that data to ensure that it has not been disrupted, or the integrity has been maintained. So for the other finished products, we have other ways of monitoring and making sure that on the vial itself, there are color indicators, the vaccine vial monitors, where you can be able to see if there was any changes, then it shows that that product has degraded, and or maybe there was a chance that the cold chain was not maintained. So you have to do your own investigation, and you can imagine how expensive that would be. Next slide. So in terms of the process, I think I've already talked about this in my previous other slides, but manufacturing processes must be validated. It's very important that we validate these processes to ensure consistent product quality. Underline that word, consistent product quality, because that's really the challenge. You can have the product of being of the right quality in the beginning, but if you cannot demonstrate that several batches or several lots after that have the same consistency or the same quality, then your system has a problem. It is not, it's not controlled as we indicated earlier. So critical utilities like the water for injection, the clean steam, pressurized gases, they must meet pharmacopoeia standards. Like I mentioned, this area is highly regulated. You will definitely find a standard that will tell you the quality requirements for each of these utilities. Then for the validated cleaning and sanitation procedures, these are going to help us prevent cross-contamination between products. For vaccines, of course, here there are also guidelines on which vaccines should be manufactured together, meaning that that you can decontaminate one line and use fill another vaccine, but there are some that you cannot at all. You cannot manufacture them in the same facility because of the risk of contamination. And most of these ones are the live attenuated vaccines. So you have to ensure from the beginning, as you design your facility, you should have the vaccine in mind. Critical process parameters must be controlled within defined units to ensure that the critical quality attributes such as potency, sterility, and stability are maintained. Then process controls ensure critical process parameters remain within defined units. So just the pictorial here is to demonstrate the critical process parameters are what will be in the facility. Then for each of these, you'll be able now to test the critical quality attributes that are going to go in your test certificate for your product to show that you have consistent product quality. Next slide. So as an addition to the process pillar, I felt it's important that we spend some time talking about the technology transfer, because this is a requirement for most fill finish facilities. I indicated that there is a technical report series, a WHO document guideline for this process. And basically what you're saying is that technology transfer is not just equipment. It is the transfer of know-how, the quality culture, and the process control. So most of the time you'll have the sending unit bringing in their own people to train, and also the staff from the receiving unit have to go to the manufacturer that is selling the technology or that is transferring the technology for the training. And sometimes it's for a period of up to 6 months even. And this is a continuous process because you're transferring the know-how and the quality culture as well. The whole process is very structured, and you transfer the knowledge, the analytical methods, the quality control from the sending unit to the receiving unit. And what you usually say, as long as you can be able to have comparable results, then you can say that your process was successfully transferred. So here we ensure that we standardize the manufacturing protocols from both units, from the receiving unit to the from the sending unit to the receiving unit, sorry. And then we ensure that we have process validation and comparability. So the testing of the product at the receiving unit, quality control lab has to compare with the sending unit. Then you have to demonstrate through engineering runs and validation batches before routine production. So before you can say that you're ready for manufacturing, you need to spend about 12 months running validation batches. Some of them you'll actually use surrogates or what we call the aseptic media fields to demonstrate that your process was completely aseptic. And then now you start using the bulk product, because remember the bulk product, which is the actual vaccine, is expensive. So you do not want to use it to test in the beginning because you cannot commercialize those batches. So you need to structure it in such a way that you can test and ensure that your process is aseptic. Then by the time now you're using the actual vaccine, then you are sure that your products, your systems are okay, and you will not waste your drug product in the end. Next slide. So looking at the equipment, I'll quickly just run through what the requirement is. So this is just a pictorial of ANOVA's biologics and vaccines manufacturing facility in Italy. As you can see, they have the epoxy floors, very easy to clean. They have the flush, even the ceilings, there are no corners, there are no the curvature is very smooth. And then as you can see, the equipment itself also the stainless steel, so that it's easy to clean. And it's a closed system. There's a way you decontaminate the system itself from the inside, so that you do not have to worry about contaminating the product. Anywhere the product is going to be open is going to be within that filling line, which is aseptic, and it's within the area around it will be class B, and then the equipment itself will provide a class A environment. So as you get the equipment, for every equipment, whether it's a production line, the utilities that you're bringing in, or the QC equipment, you have to carry out the design qualification to ensure that the equipment meets the user requirements. Then you have the installation qualification to verify the installation is correct. Then we have the operation qualification to confirm that the equipment operates as intended. And then the most important is the performance qualification, which demonstrates consistent performance under real production conditions. So during the performance qualification, you have to have the product. And the protocol itself will have the specifications. And by the time you're done, you should have a certificate to demonstrate that the equipment has performed as it should. And this performance qualification is similar to what you'd do for the annual or biannual calibration. So this is a very important qualification, because if it doesn't meet this requirement, then you cannot commission the equipment. So we need to ensure that the equipment consistently perform as intended to produce safe, quality, and efficacious products. So if you get it wrong at the equipment level, you cannot rely on those results. So you need to ensure that the entire qualification is done. And this is where we also carry out the training of personnel. So whoever is supplying the equipment has also to come and train the personnel. You should not find yourself in a situation where you are asking, how do I turn on this machine? What do I do here? You have no manuals, you have no training for this. Of course, we know the training that you'll receive maybe over a period of a week or 2 weeks is not enough, but at least you establish a relationship with your manufacturer. You can call them, you can do video conferencing, and you can be able to learn and ask questions, but at least you'll have had an idea from the beginning when they're carrying out the performance qualification. You'll be able to know how that equipment works. You'll have at least a few pointers on how to troubleshoot. So it's very important, because most of these equipment are very expensive. And so you do not want a situation where you have an equipment that you cannot operate. And some of these engineers will be coming from Europe, or from the US or Australia. And if you have to cater for their accommodation and flight costs, it's too expensive. So this is a very important step as you procure the equipment. Next slide. And maybe perhaps something I've just remembered, when you're talking about the equipment, if you could go back, please, Juliet. This is when you're procuring the equipment. I focused on that because that is where we are at Kenya Biovacs, but it's important to also note that during the life cycle of the equipment, you have to ensure that you have preventive maintenance of the equipment, and also you need to schedule calibration. So this is something that will help maintain your equipment. There are also requirements for the computerized systems that will be coupled together with the equipment. You have to ensure that you have validated those computerized systems, and you have documentation for that. You have to keep a record of that. And then you should have a way of retiring the equipment, and you have to plan ahead to procure this equipment. Most of them, they have what they call the programmed obsolescence. And so at the end of maybe 10 years, you will have to start planning how to replace some of this equipment. And you can only do this if you have a proper schedule and program for preventive maintenance, so that you can be able to know when the manufacturer is phasing out a certain equipment, so that you don't run into the trouble of not getting some parts because some of the equipment are already obsolete. Next slide. I touched on the contamination control strategy, especially for vaccines and biologics, because they cannot undergo terminal sterilization. They require strict aseptic manufacturing controls. So clean room classification is important, pressure cascades, the HEPA filtration to maintain sterile processing environments. The validated cleaning, disinfection, and sterilization of equipment is very important to prevent microbial contamination. The good thing is that some of the equipment like isolators, they come with the inbuilt decontamination processes using hydrogen peroxide. So by the time you're ready to start your tests, it will give you a printout. And if the equipment is not it has not achieved decontamination, it will not even open and allow you to test the product or to even have your product through the filling line. So you have to achieve that sterile state first before you can use the equipment. So that's a very good control, so that people do not use equipment that are not ready or thoroughly decontaminated. Then it's very important to make sure that you have waste management systems. These include biokill effluent treatment plants to prevent environmental release of biological agents. So there are requirements to ensure that you've addressed environmental risks. So this is very important that as you set up the manufacturing facility or you maintain one, you have to make sure that you have waste management systems that have the right requirements. Next slide. I'll just briefly touch on the pharmaceutical quality control system. The guideline is available. It's an ICH guideline Q10, and this establishes a framework for the entire product life cycle. If you look at the quality management systems, the ISO 17025 for labs, then of course we have the WHO guidelines also. They talk about there's a quality management system that lays the foundation for manufacturing facilities and other, including labs. However, for pharmaceutical quality control, quality systems, we have additional requirements, and these need to be they're more stringent, but basically they follow the same kind of standard because we've harmonized the ISO and the WHO. So here what we are looking for mainly is process performance and product quality monitoring system. We also have the CAPA system, that's the corrective and preventive action, the change management system. In the event to change anything, you change your method, you change a certain process, even your cleaning validation is changed, you have to ensure that you have a change management. Then the management review, there's a it's the ISO 9001 management requirement, but in addition to that, you have to review the process performance and product quality. Then, as always, we never get to our destination. We are always continuously improving, and the supporting concepts here are the critical quality attributes and the critical process parameters, in addition to the critical material attributes, which are specifically for the raw materials. I'd already touched on the CQAs and CPPs. Next slide. I'm sorry I have to rush because I'm also very aware that our time is really gone. So for quality control of vaccines, or what you'd call in biomanufacturing, here we ensure that every lot means every homogeneously manufactured vaccine has to meet certain requirements, predefined standards of safety, quality, and efficacy before they're released into the public. So the key functions here for a quality control lab, they are just the same as what you'd find in any other pharmaceutical facility. You test the raw material and the reagents to verify their identity, purity, and quality. We also have in-process controls where you monitor the critical parameters during manufacturing. And then finally, you have the finished product testing where you confirm that the product meets specifications of potency, sterility, endotoxin identity, and purity testing. There are also other additional tests, but these are just these are the main ones that you need to ensure that your facility has capability for. And you have to do this in your QC lab. You do not outsource this unless it's absolutely necessary. So you have to build capacity to be able to test this. And then the same lab should be able to test and monitor the environment, and also in terms of the air and the settle plates that you'll have to monitor the microbial contamination in your facility. Next slide. So regulatory oversight and independent assurance. This is really what I was talking about. The national regulatory authorities have a mandate to protect the public and ensure that they have the right, the public has safe, efficacious, and quality products. They work very closely with national quality control labs. Then all this is founded under the international standards that I mentioned. And then we have the contract research organizations that, in our case here, clinical trials. Of course, they are for all other health products, you have to have the clinical trials as well. So the functions here, what they do is to ensure that they conduct clinical trials, or they oversight clinical trials and bridging studies, especially for us who, if you're manufacturing a vaccine that is a traditional vaccine, or what we call the legacy vaccines. Most of these vaccines were, the clinical trials for these vaccines were done in populations outside of Africa. And now that we are manufacturing them within our continent, we also have to demonstrate that there are some studies, or there are safety studies that have been done within our population. And that is now what the bridging studies do. Then we have product registration, or what we provide, is provided by the regulator as a marketing authorization. And then we have GMP inspections. No manufacturer should manufacture and commercialize without a GMP certificate from the Pharmacy and Poisons Board for our case in Kenya. And then in the case of vaccines, you have the regulator is the one also who issues lot release. Every lot has to have a lot release certificate from the regulator. And then, of course, pharmacovigilance. Yes, it is the mandate of the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, but it also lies squarely on the manufacturer. They bear the responsibility and the burden of carrying out pharmacovigilance of their product in the market. They work very closely with the healthcare workers and also the patients and whoever else is receiving the vaccine, to collect as much data on the quality and the safety of the product. And then post-market surveillance to just ensure that you monitor actively, or have planned exercises where you collect samples and test them to ensure that your quality is maintained in the market. Sometimes the storage of the product can compromise the quality of the product. So it's not always that the product was of poor quality from the manufacturer, but maybe the hospitals or the warehouses stored it under they broke the cold chain and it was not maintained. So you have to ensure that you also train and sensitize the healthcare worker of the warehouse personnel so that your product is maintained and it's at the right quality, the entire, all the way to the last mile. Next slide. So the quality risk, this one, let me not to talk too much about it, but for the audience, you can look it up. It's the ICH guideline Q10. Basically what it does, it demonstrates that you should be able to monitor the risk across all the GMP pillars that we've talked about. You need to identify those risks, mitigate them, and it's risk-based decision making. So here it's for you to identify in the risk across the pillars. Then there's a matrix that you use, and then once you have been able to identify and classified your risk, whether it's a high risk or it is a low risk, then you mitigate those risks. So I think this is a standard tool for risk assessment that every facility should have. Next slide. So documentation here, you have to ensure that it is evidence-based. This is how you demonstrate traceability, and this is very useful during inspections because the auditors come and sample, and they will do a trace back or an audit trail, and they will be able to reconstruct and understand how this product was manufactured. They might not be there for the entire month or the entire week, but during that time of the assessment, that is how they can be able to demonstrate that you have met the requirements. So the SOPs will ensure consistency. If Sarah is testing a product and Juliet comes and does the same, we should get the same results if you're following the same SOP. And then the accurate documentation supports data integrity. Data integrity is very key when it comes to WHO requirements and also, of course, other GMP requirements, because it's through this that we can be able to ensure that your data is not compromised and it's captured. We have the ALCOA. You can go and look up ALCOA. ALCOA is it's ALCOA, and that acronym is what you should use whenever you're recording your data. You can look it up and you'll see what it means. Then strong documentation systems enable continuous improvement and lifecycle management. Next slide. I've talked about the clinical trials, so we can pass through this slide. We don't have to talk about that in the interest of time. Juliet, Steve is asking the acronym. I think you know ALCOA. We must have been in the same class with you at some point, so you can type it, yes. Bridging studies, I have talked about them. Here they are conducted when a product that was developed or tested in another population, they need to be evaluated in another population or region, mostly in Africa. And here what they do, they confirm the safety, efficacy, or immunogenicity of the new population and ensure that it's comparable. You get the same you have comparable data from the initial population. Mostly they have smaller, if you look at phase 3 clinical trials, you're talking about thousands. So in this case, you send it out to a smaller population. So they are not as expensive and they are also faster. So because you're also not dealing with too many people. But remember, this is already a product that is registered in another country. So the safety, efficacy, and quality of the product has already been established. So yes, Maurice, you are correct. It's actually Alcoa Plus now. Yeah. So next slide. I've just seen a pop-up Maurice had said, so you can see people already know. Now I have a few examples of where the vaccine quality has failed. And what is interesting to note is that the regulations, the global vaccine regulations that we have, they have actually evolved largely in response to the quality failures. The failures that have happened in the past are what have led to the guidelines that I mentioned earlier. So when any of those pillars that we've been talking about fail, the personnel, processes, contamination control, documentation, when they fail, the consequences can extend beyond a single product and undermine public trust in vaccination programs. So it's very important to ensure that these pillars are taken care of and we have requirements that are adhered to, because it can mean loss of lives or the quality of life of a child especially. Remember, vaccines, I keep saying, they are for healthy populations, it's a child, so we have to be even more careful. Even as much as we know vaccines prevent disease, especially the communicable diseases, and they save lives, but they also can cause infection, or they can cause harm when their quality is not taken care of, and safety. Next slide. So the first example is the Qatar incident. This was when they introduced the injectable polio vaccine, where the inactivation was incomplete. That inactivation was done, is supposed to be done using formaldehyde, but because it was not complete during that time, in 1955, it was administered to about 200,000 children, but 40,000 got polio. Some of them died. So this is, as a result, we had some of the vaccine regulations now even more strengthened, and the validation of processes was enhanced because of this issue. You can read about it. And of course, this actually led to the anti-vaxxers and to vaccine hesitancy because of the number of children who contracted polio. Then we have another polio vaccine also that was contaminated with simian virus 40. And now the issue of raw materials and cell substrate testing became a requirement. Next slide. So the other one is a vaccine where we had the Changshen vaccine scandal in China in 2018. There was falsification of test records for rabies vaccine. Now here, of course, you can imagine the public outcry, loss of trust, and so data integrity was an issue here. So we have to ensure that, in fact, I remember around this time is when WHO now had trainings across the globe on data integrity. In fact, I think around here, or was it 2016, is when I first heard of that acronym of ALCOA, because now when people falsify results, how they backdate someone signs work that they never did. So all those things now, you find even software and equipment now, you cannot turn back that clock. You cannot, the software that meets data integrity requirements is where you can demonstrate that you are the only person who logged in. If you change anything, the audit trail should be printed. And then if in a way you can copy and paste data into that software, then it doesn't meet the requirement. So they have a whole lot of requirements to demonstrate that you cannot falsify those results. Then there is this biosolutions product where there was cross-contamination in the vaccine production lines. And now here they ended up losing 15 million doses. So you can imagine the investment lost here. And now here the issue of facility design and contamination strategies is what needed to be reinforced. Next slide. I think this is my last slide on examples. So we have this Sanofi. Someone mentioned Pfizer when they hear vaccines, but for me, when we're talking about vaccines, it's Sanofi. Sanofi is a go-to in terms of vaccines. I know Pfizer became popular because of the COVID-19, but when it comes to other vaccines, you can go to their website to look at all the research they're doing on vaccines. They are really, they are the go-to when it comes to, especially for me, especially when it comes to vaccines. So they had developed this dengue vaccine, and then it had gone through all the clinical trials. But unfortunately, when they rolled it out, they noticed that the vaccine was causing severe disease in individuals who had not had dengue infection. So what happened now is that it caused vaccine hesitancy. There was even an advisory that was given, of course, their president, because they had rolled it out. It was the first dengue fever vaccine in the country, and then now caused deaths in children. So, and this was about the clinical data. So it was not really a fault on their side, but they just needed to have done more clinical trials to establish the safety of this vaccine. So of course now they needed to heighten to highlight the importance of clinical data evaluation, and we have safety committees that are established to do that. Then finally, the influenza vaccine in the UK, where there was contamination with a bacteria, the Serratia bacteria. And here the UK regulator suspended the license of this manufacturer. So it had the trust and also that investment. Next slide. So as a final statement, trust takes years to build, only a few seconds to break, someone forgetting something, and then it takes forever to repair. It takes a long time for people to, maybe that whole generation has to has to grow old and die before people can trust. Either you rebrand or something, but it takes a very, very long time to repair. That's my last session, my last slide. Thank you very much for your attention. I welcome questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Samter, for taking us through this session. And I'm seeing good reactions from the room. Many are appreciating the presentation that you've given to us, and I want to believe that we are leaving here empowered. Also, we have questions. Tendai, I saw your hand up. I don't know if it was a reaction or you have a question that you'd like to pose to Dr. Motero. So I'd like to ask for about 10 minutes from you, so that we can get into the Q&A session. I can see a few questions on the Q&A box. Go ahead and share any questions that you may have so that Dr. Mochelo can get to answer you. So I'll start with the questions that are on the chat, and I can see these ones are from Grace. The is, when a batch deviation is detected post-release, what does an escalation process, and at what point do NRAs get notified? How fast? This
Could
feels
you
like
please,
a
you said a
regulatory
batch,
responsibility.
Juliet, I lost you there for a bit. So the name of the person who asked, and also you asked when a batch is detected, where a batch has contamination, batch contamination.
Yeah, a deviation is
A
detected
deviation, yes,
post-release. Yeah,
post-release.
yeah.
Okay. So when is a NRA notified?
And how fast, and how does the escalation process look like?
Okay. So thank you for that question. I didn't get the name of the person who asked the question, but
It's Grace.
Grace. Thank you, Grace, for that question. So here it depends on who detected this. If it's already post-release, it's in the market. I believe you're talking about when a product is already in the market. So if it's reported through the pharmacovigilance system that the Pharmacy and Poisons Board has in place, because they have their pharmacovigilance system, then the regulator is the one that will take up this product and start their investigation. Of course, we will be alerted as a manufacturer. They have to be alerted. And then once they do this, they start their investigation. But the immediate reaction here is to recall the product, not necessarily to recall, but to ensure that it is not given to any other patient as they do the investigation. So in terms of timelines, I will have to go and check, but what I know is you have an obligation to investigate, know whether other batches have been affected, because you have to sample other batches, then it has to be tested if it's a quality issue. So because if it's a deviation that is not really a quality issue, then that's another issue. But if it's a vaccine, you have to ensure that the National Vaccine Immunization Program is also contacted, because sometimes the quality issue could be the product, if it needs to be diluted, the diluent that has been used could be a mix-up. Maybe it was supposed to be water for injection. Then you know how they store some of these products. A healthcare worker can easily mess it up, and then maybe it causes an issue. Maybe a child gets sick, or the unfortunate event, a child dies, then they have to investigate and see. So if it's a product that is a problem itself, then they will have to report to the WHO. It's an obligation that they report to the WHO, and the entire product is recalled from the market, and they have to witness the destruction of this product. Of course, that has an implication on the facility. I think you've all seen what happened when there was an issue with the polio vaccine. There has to be an investigation, and then if really you attribute the adverse event post-immunization is due to the vaccine itself, then that of course is an issue that the national government has to take up. But we can all go back and look at the guidelines again, including myself. I'll go and see in terms of timelines. Yes. Another question?
Thank you so much, Dr. Mutelu, for answering that. The next question, still from Grace. What are the current financing models used by donors to incentivize quality investment for vaccine manufacturing in Africa?
Hey, Grace, I can see you know about vaccine manufacturing a lot. So now with the donors, apart from what we know, Gavi, Gavi finances vaccines that are low income countries, but for the low and middle income countries, what has been happening, they are now being graduated out of the Gavi support. But they are not doing this at a go. It's over a period of time, and governments have been given what I can call a notice. They've given them letters to tell them when they are graduating of this Gavi support, so that they can be self-sufficient in terms of supporting their own, either manufacturing their own or having funding to procure their own vaccines. And so governments are well prepared. But in addition to that, there is a fund under the Africa Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator Fund, where they've given some funding. You can look it up, AVMA, where governments can access funding to build capacity to manufacture their own vaccines. So there is funding available, about 1.2 billion. Not Kenya shillings, but US dollars, 1.2 billion US dollars. So these monies are enough. They're not enough, but therefore they've identified some 8 antigens, where if you're going to manufacture any of these 8 antigens, then you can access funding for tech transfer. You can access funding for the infrastructure, I think also for workforce development. So, but I'm not sure whether any of the African manufacturers has been able to tap into these funds. But also, I think they're also working with companies that are well established, not on the continent, but outside the continent, like in India, where if you sell your technology to an African country that is interested in manufacturing, or a company that is manufacturing, I think they're getting some money also as a manufacturer to expand their capacity, as a way also of incentivizing these companies to support African countries. Yeah, thank you. I hope that answers Grace. Yeah.
I hope so as well. It's an interesting discussion, especially when it comes to funding.
Yeah.
Then
But I have some of my colleagues who are very good in health financing. Maybe perhaps we'll invite them for that talk.
That session,
yeah,
we should use one for financing and funding when it comes to vaccine manufacturing in the continent. So the last question here is with regards to regulatory harmonization. And what role does AMA play in ensuring harmonized quality standards across African countries?
Okay, thank you for that question. We are really happy as an African continent that we have seen the establishment of the African Medicines Agency, AMA, because as a continent, we say we are a big place, meaning we have very fragmented regulatory systems. We have different languages. our countries, it's very difficult for most of the people who are trying to access our markets, even to get a product registered, because Kenya or East Africa will have its own requirements. Then we have West Africa with its own requirements, North and South. And so AMA was established to help harmonize all these. I think you're aware that when they appointed a DG last year, and now they're gaining some traction. I don't think all the countries have signed the treaty for AMA. Of course, there are those challenges. They have directors now. And so they've started the work and they've benchmarked with the European Medicines Agency. So they've started the work of coming up with harmonized guidelines, and this will really help. This will help because countries now, we will have our own continental guidelines. And the idea is to ensure that when a product is registered by AMA, then it's easy for it to access the other markets, or at least the registration will be expedited in the other countries. Of course, there's been discussions on, because regulatory authorities also have to raise their own funds, and they do this through the registration fees. So at the moment, they have agreed that vaccines and commodities, I think for malaria, for HIV, and TB, if I'm not wrong, these ones will be registered by AMA, and so you'll not require to go through the rigorous registration processes in the other countries. Then, of course, the commodities that are used during pandemics will also be registered through AMA. So that is all I know about AMA, but I'll also try and see if we can get additional information, and then through you, Juliet, we can be able to do this. But there are also other regulatory harmonization initiatives that are already there. You know about the East African one, then we have Zazibona, we have one for West Africa, and others on the continent. So countries had already come together and harmonized their own regulatory registration processes to make it easier for member states to register their products. So at least there were some initiatives. So AMA has not come to replace this. They've just come to ensure that these other regulatory harmonization initiatives can also just coalesce together, work together, and ensure that we have a strong African Medicines Agency. It can only be as strong as the support they will receive from member states. And it's going to take time, but I think they're doing well. They're doing well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Muteru. That was well answered. And I was also asking myself, if someone is bringing a vaccine and you want to supply to the countries on the continent, how will you go about it? Do you have to go through the regional pathways or the countries? But now that you have said you can go through AMA, that is even more efficient. Thank you so much. So Nixon is saying, with other nations entering the vaccine manufacturing ecosystem in Africa, is there a methodology or model which nations are using so as not to focus on manufacturing the same vaccination products?
Thank you, Nixon, for that question. I will try to answer it the best way I can. What I can say is that in this field, there's knowledge. We are getting new information, and then the landscape is evolving, and so we keep getting information as we go. So when it comes to the model that Africa CDC is using, remember, most of this, I mentioned the 25 African countries that are in this vaccine manufacturing business, and they are at different phases. There are some that are they are already in operational phase, like South Africa, Egypt, and others. Then there are others that are already, like for Kenya Biovacs, that are establishing the capacity in terms of the human resource and also the infrastructure. Others have already started the technology transfer. They have the facility, but they are doing the technology transfer. But most of them are not willing to disclose the vaccine that they are manufacturing for obvious reasons. So what Africa CDC has helped now to support initiatives where you have what can we say, manufacturing hubs, and they have already identified and published the antigens that these manufacturers are manufacturing, because we are only looking at the same market. The same African continent is the one that will buy your vaccine. So we need to know who is manufacturing what, because we do not want to duplicate. We want to leverage on already existing strengths. So there is already information out there on the type of vaccine different countries are intending to manufacture. But then we have initiatives like the African Vaccine Manufacturers Initiative, AVMI. This one requires you to register, and there's a subscription fee that you pay. And then these ones will also help with making sure that they will facilitate agreements between states, so that if we manufacture vaccine X, we can sign an agreement with another manufacturer manufacturing Y, so that we can buy from each other. So, and of course, the plants that we talked about, since most of them are establishing capacity for fill finish, then they have already started mapping out who will manufacture the drug substance, so that when we are manufacturing vaccines end to end, then you know that you'll not rely on another manufacturer outside of the continent, but you'll buy from your own. Of course, this will take time. There are issues, or there are political issues here. These are agreements by heads of states. So some of them are beyond technical people like us. They are agreements that have to be signed at another level. But Africa CDC is already very aware of this, and they've already started. They've mapped out the vaccines that will be manufactured by different countries, so that you don't have duplication, and you can have a guaranteed market. Like I mentioned, the time horizons for manufacturing are maybe, let's say, 7 to 10 years. So by the time you're coming out with your vaccine, if you had not communicated what you designed your facility for, you might just get to the market and you realize your neighbor was manufacturing the same, was planning to manufacture the same. And sometimes redesigning and then changing your facility might be too expensive. So manufacturers are becoming aware of this, and people are opening up and talking freely about their plans, their business plans, their portfolio, because maybe you have your portfolio over a period of 10 years. So this is a conversation that people are learning to have, because it's not something that African countries were used to, where they were sitting and talking freely with each other. Yeah, so this is something the vaccine manufacturing landscape has forced people to now see each other as brothers and sisters, if I may say, and now they are talking together on one table. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I can see a good reaction from Nixon. I hope you have been well answered. And moving on to the last question, this is from Steve. He says, what's the roadmap towards achieving 60% vaccine manufacturing in Kenya and Africa at large? Is there government assistance and regulators help in this?
Steve, I wish I could answer you that question, but what I can say is that this was a very ambitious goal to have 60%. If you look at the Africa CDC website, they have been conducting studies to see how far we are going in terms of the progress we are making towards that 2040. Sometimes when you set a goal like this, very ambitious, and then now you get to the ground where you need to establish that capacity, there are challenges that you encounter along the way. But for me, I think this was a good goal to have, because a lot has happened between from that 2021 declaration. Like now, for example, we have our president, His Excellency William Ruto, is the local manufacturing champion on the continent. So there are initiatives that are actually being done on the continent towards making sure that we achieve this goal. The issue of financing, I mentioned the AVMA that has allocated the 1.2 billion US dollars, but also there are initiatives now to resource mobilize and support governments and to ensure that they have resources. So you'll find that for Kenya Biovacs, I think it is public knowledge now that we have received World Bank financing under the Health Emergency Preparedness, Response and Resilience Project under the World Bank. And that one you can actually check on the website, the World Bank website. It's not only Kenya, it's also supporting Ethiopia on the same and other countries. So, but Kenya was the first. So they are looking at how well we will implement this project, and it can actually lead to other countries getting the similar support. So as you can see, because of the ethical question that we saw during COVID, government being asked to say who will live and who will die. I mean that no country should ever ask that kind of question. And so there is a lot of political goodwill in this area for every country on the continent. So you'll find the initiatives to change laws, to give subsidies and tax exemptions on some of the raw materials and equipment. So a lot has happened. And it's not only in the vaccine field, there's also the pharma, the health products and technologies as a whole. And you can see there's a lot of focus that we have seen, and you cannot compare with what was happening previously. The conversation around ML3, the entire country right now is rallying towards supporting Pharmacy and Poisons Board to achieve maturity level 3. Of course, there are challenges because it is a country maturity level. So it touches on policy, it touches on the regulator, touches on the manufacturers. So we have to support the Pharmacy and Poisons Board to ensure that they achieve this maturity level, because it will help the country in terms of our products having access in other countries. Because if they are certified or they are licensed by PPB, then other countries also trust the same product. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Montero. I want to believe that that was well answered if we can get some reaction from Steve. But I've really, really learned a lot, and this has stimulated my mind as well, even when it comes to looking at pharmacovigilance and how to report adverse events following immunization. Some of the things that we also saw during COVID-19, we had individuals who were experiencing the adverse reactions following the immunization. Also, how to go about it as well. And I also feel that it is also something good that the healthcare providers as well, that we should advocate and try to teach the public on what vaccines are, the benefits of them. We have so many people who believe that these are innovations that have already been brought so that to maybe reduce the world population or something like that. But not each and every vaccine has that particular kind of agenda, but just to get to understand what is the benefit behind vaccines so that we can drive uptake of good vaccines that have been brought to us in the continent. So maybe in another forum, you'll also guide us through pharmacovigilance when it comes to pharmacovigilance and vaccine manufacturing in the continent as well, and advocacy as well for the part of healthcare providers. So thank you so much, Dr. Mutero. I really appreciate you, and thank you for accepting our invitation, guiding us through this session. To our participants, thank you as well. I just want to invite you to share your feedback with us. Yes, Dr. Mutero, over to you.
Thank you, Juliet. I really appreciate the very interactive session. Thank you for the positive feedback from the audience. Really appreciate. I've also learned, and I also have gotten questions that I need to go and research on. And then on your request about pharmacovigilance, you should talk to Pharmacy and Poisons Board. They have very good pharmacovigilance experts. Actually, the PPB Pharmacovigilance is a center of excellence for WHO, I think. And so they are very good. They should invite them for a session as well. But all the same, I'm really, really grateful for this, and I'm looking forward to interacting with you and learning from also all the others. I appreciate your time. It's a Friday afternoon, and I don't take it for granted that we still have some people who are hanging in there. Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening and the rest of your and also for the weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Motero. Much, much appreciated. We'll definitely be reaching out to you. And if there's anyone in the audience who would like to be on our platform and just get to share with the audience in the African continent on what is going on, please go ahead and reach out to us. We'll be sharing our email and our contacts with you. Please go ahead and share with us. Let us know what's a pinpoint for you. What are some of the topics that you'd like for us to cover as well. And we'd definitely love to host you as a guest as well on our platform. Thank you. So you can go ahead and give me your feedback on how you found the session today before we call it an evening. I can see that you want responses already. So if you are sharing, don't let me lock you out. Truly, truly appreciate you. Thank you. This feedback will help us improve on our next offerings as well. Right, and moving on to the next. What did you like about the session today? Interactive. Thank you. Interactive session. The presenter had good content. Thank you. Sharing with regards to vaccine manufacturing. Thank you. Industry sessions. Okay. Interaction and engagement. Okay. All right. Great organization. Thank you. All right. Good. Anyone else who is sharing their responses? To those of us who are requesting for the slides, please be assured that we'll be sharing this with you post this event, including the recording as well, so that you can be able to have these materials as your resources and just get to go back to them, reflect on them as well, and try to see how they can also influence the kind of work that you are doing in your organization. So those will be shared with you via email. Those who are joining us from Kenya and you are licensed in Kenya, go ahead and subscribe on Pharmacy and Poisons Board for this particular event. Search the event title, and you'll be able to get your CPD points by Monday in the afternoon. Thank you. Rich session, well detailed. Thank you so much. Thank you. The topic was amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Moving on to the last question, what can we improve on in our next lecture? Access to quiz. All right. We apologize for that at the beginning. Okay. Trying to see if I can see more. Okay, all right. Forward the slides, great work. Manufacturing webinars, all right. Thank you. Webinars on local manufacturing. We'll definitely be having this coming up. In the next coming month, we'll be having WHO. They will be taking us through the different regulatory pathways that they have for different particular products. So if you're also interested in this, we'll be sharing some of those events as well with you on the emails. So just be on the lookout for these particular sessions. We'll definitely be inviting you to more sessions this year. Thank you. Right. And with that, I want to bring this to a close. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Go ahead and enjoy your evening and the rest of your weekend. We always appreciate having you as an audience. My name has been Juliet Olma, and it has been pleasure. It has been a great pleasure to have you as our audience this evening. That is from me to you as well, from African Pharmaceutical Network as an organization. So thank you so much. Enjoy your evening and the rest of your weekend. We'll catch up with you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet. Goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye. Thank you.